Everyone, thanks to the Institute for Self-Reliance, Open Market Institute, our lovely guests. If you want to take a seat, that's great. And the wonderful Main Street Alliance small businesses that are here today. My name is Shawn Phetteplace. I am the Midwest Regional Manager for the Main Street Alliance. Prior to joining MSA, I worked for President Obama, a couple of members of Congress, the One campaign, and joined Main Street Alliance about 2 years ago. Main Street Alliance is an organization founded by small business leaders, including many of the folks in this room, in 2008. MSA organizes small businesses around issues that matter most to them, their employees and the communities that they serve. MSA aims to build a powerful, self-funded, multiracial small business coalition and membership organization that can shift our economic narrative, wield political power, and win policy reform for small business owners at the state, federal, and local level. Under the leadership of Shawn, our executive director, Main Street Alliance has been able to set a strategic agenda around the issues that small business owners care most about. That agenda includes critical issues like healthcare, childcare, paid leave, capital access, tax fairness, and reining in monopolies, which is what we're all here to talk about today. Our Minnesota organizer, Melissa, who's out back right now, is here today as well, and I know she would love to meet with you, especially if you're a small business owner, but also if you're not, if you're an economic development person, if you care about policy, care about the issues I mentioned, really want to get connected with you. And if you have, there's a little sign up on your chair. If you don't have one, talk to Mel before you leave. We want to make sure that we're building power for small businesses all across our country. We're gathered here today to discuss the destructive impact of monopolies and corporate concentration on small business. I want you to imagine for a moment a world without monopoly power, a world in which government prioritizes and nurtures Main Street small businesses and protects the ability of all people of all backgrounds to be able to contribute to their community. Imagine what kind of freedom that would mean for small business. That would mean access to customers, suppliers, distributors. They could sell their products or services at actual market prices. Imagine that. Not the prices demanded by a corporate platform. They could seek seed or expansion funds from a local financial institution, maybe a bank dedicated to supporting non-white entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and others whose full value is not recognized often by traditional measures. In this world, small businesses would chart their own course and compete on their own terms. There is a growing movement across the United States to rein in monopoly power and start creating a world that looks like this. Small business owners are a part of that movement, and we'll hear from them and advocates for workers today. So that said, a few housekeeping items. For the bios for our lovely speakers, in the effort to be succinct, you look at the QR code, get a lovely background on them. They're all amazing people. I highly recommend you do that. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and do some introductions. And so first off, we're going to start with R.F. Buche. R.F. is a fourth-generation grocer with stores in rural South Dakota. Independent grocery stores are a critical part of our food system, and data shows that they are particularly important in small towns and communities of color. Yet local grocers have been facing a real problem with big chains, particularly Walmart and dollar stores. And I can say this, as somebody who lives in Wisconsin, I've seen this firsthand. They're getting preferential access to supplies, special package sizes, and better prices. Can you talk, RF, a bit about what you've experienced and what it means for the communities that you serve?
Sure. I don't know whether to be honored or nervous that I don't have anything else to say with Mr. Bedoya taking all my notes there. But RF Buche, we've got 22 locations, mostly grocery and C-store throughout South Dakota. All of our locations are on or near Native American generations. I'm a fourth-generation grocer, and I've got a real passion for access to healthy foods and affordable foods. So we're going to turn 117 years this year, and I'm just really passionate about the customers that I serve. The three areas of unfair trade practices going on today that we face. The first is price discrimination and predatory prices. As Mr. Bedoya discussed, we buy from a wholesaler. It's actually a co-op, which takes a lot of independents like me, packages up our orders, and able to go to these suppliers and get full truckloads of product. So we can talk about efficiencies all day long, but a truckload is a truckload is a truckload, okay? So AWG is a $10 billion company, so they're no small player. They do take a small markup, and you know, obviously I'm fine with giving up an extra 2 or 3% to Walmart. But the truckloads of those products are not at the same cost. Just to give you a couple examples, Tide 100 ounce. Regular cost from my supplier, my cost, $21. 3 times a year, I get to pay $19.69. So $19.69 is my cost, and if I were to bridge buy for the whole year, I could buy it at $19.69. Walmart, everyday low price, $12.97. Now, vendors or manufacturers used to use the excuse, well, we can't guarantee that these independents are going to run it for the same price. So they're saying they're dictating to the big box or dictating the chains what that retail should be. So what did us retailers do? We said we opened up our books. So we let the vendors, the manufacturers, get into our, they call it T-logs, but it gets into our cash registers at night and looks at, they can see how many units we sold, what we sold them for, okay? Now we're back on an even playing field. So now if they're gonna dictate the retail, we should be able to buy at the same cost. But nothing changed. For half the year, just 6 months out of the year, I get to pay $2.92 for Kraft salad dressing if I retail it for $2.99. Get to make 7 cents. And that's if I bridge buy. Every other day, the other 6 months of the year, it's $3.77 cost. Walmart, every day, low price on Kraft salad dressings is $2.58. And if anybody in this room thinks that they're only making 7 cents, it's just crazy. So I could tell you that us retailers are tired of the big box chains, the big box stores and chains, making their margins on the backs of us retailers, because that's exactly where it's coming from. Second unfair trade practice that happens, and it's mostly in dollar store formats, is that we can't buy the same sizes. Dollar General, Family Dollar, 70% of their products are consumable, okay? A lot of people don't know that, they don't think that, they just think that it's trinkets and junk. But they are a real threat to small town America. 90% of those products are smaller sizes to deceive the customer, okay? So customer is used to looking at a 50-ounce Tide. They may have a 40-ounce Tide that looks the exact same bottle shape, and if you're not a grocer or a really conscientious consumer, you don't realize those things, okay? But even if I wanted to compete on that level, I can't. I'm getting denied those sizes, so I can't even compete fairly to buy those products. And the third and final trade practice that I think is unfair is probably the one I'm most passionate about, is where rural Americas are disproportionately impacted by supply chain issues. My wholesaler, AWG, last article I read from them, they still have over 100 plus manufacturers that have put us on allocation. Baby formula, ramen noodles, Gatorade, sugar, Pedialyte, and I could go on and on. But yet I can walk into a big box store or a chain and see those products stacked to the hilt. 65% of grocery sales are from 5 companies. And if you live in a rural place, that should scare the crap out of you, okay? In short, when it comes to my customers, should not have to miss meals or be shorted product just because they're rural. Pine Ridge, 90% of the people there don't have cars. 89 miles from the closest Walmart. When it comes to hunger, affordability, and nutrition, there should be no discrimination.
Well, thank you very much. And just to your point, I was recently in Spring Green, Wisconsin. It's where Taliesin and Frank Lloyd Wright is. It's a bustling downtown, lots of small businesses that are very healthy. They've specifically decided to not allow Dollar General, from a zoning standpoint, to come into town. And walking through there, you can really see the impact of small businesses being able to compete on a level playing field. To the questions that you spoke to that, can you speak to the role of policy and the challenges that your business faces as a direct result of policy choices and how it impacts the way that you run your business?
Well, I think just exactly what I talked about. One thing I did want to mention on Dollar General, what we face in rural South Dakota happens all the time. There are towns, small towns, that try and keep those dollar stores off.
Yeah.
But what happens, they'll just go right outside city limits, and then it's a twofold problem, because now it's going to affect those businesses in that town, but yet no sales tax dollars are made for that city.
Right.
So, but having to deal with all three of those things that we just talked about, I mean, price for one, and I hate to say it, but it just, we are absolutely paying for the discounts. Us retailers are paying for the discounts of those wholesalers. Not being able to compete with sizes, and that happens on every segment of the market, not just dollar, but lots of places. And then finally, access to them, which I think if the pandemic didn't show what that could mean, I don't know what it's going to take to be able to get something done.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add just about being an independent grocery store, the struggles you face? You talked about the pricing, the undercutting. Like, what do you think are some policy proposals that could be done to help to address those?
Well, I think the cost issue is, look, I understand that my stores are way off the beaten path, and I get that, you know, it costs more to transport that out there. Yes, I understand that. But when my wholesaler can't buy the same products at the same price, it's just not right. And furthermore, I worry about who's going to sponsor that ball team. Who's going to donate to the church bazaar? Who's going to be there for the families when their house burns down to have a fundraising event when all of guys like me are gone? We can't expect big chains, big box to do the right thing.
And during the pandemic, were your products given lower priority comparatively to the big box stores? Is that something you had to deal with, especially early on? Absolutely.
I mean, it's just like Mr. Bedoya talked about. We could only get, you know, formula, for instance. We could only get 5 cases per truck, okay? So that for us is 10 cases a week, the max that we could get. Well, we have Pine Ridge that could go through 50, so we would have to go drive to our lower volume stores, and I can't pass that cost on to my customers. They deserve better. So it's just it's just, for lack of a better word, just doing the right thing.
Yeah. As I've worked across mostly Wisconsin, working with small business owners, that was a huge issue early on, where folks literally couldn't get their product sold because paper towels and high margin products were given priority, and those small businesses were no longer be able to make it to market. Well, thank you very much for those remarks, and thanks for the work that you do. Next, we'll go to Angela Schwesnedl. Angela is a wonderful Main Street Alliance member, and we're thankful for her to be here today. And she's the owner of local independent bookstore in the Longfellow neighborhood of South Minneapolis. Your store has been around for over a decade, and you've witnessed rapid change in the industry, from consolidation in publishing to the growth of Amazon. Can you speak to how Amazon's dominance has impacted publishing and your business?
Yeah, definitely. My bookstore is located at Lake and Minnehaha in South Minneapolis, and this is the site of where the 3rd precinct was burned during the uprising in 2020 when George Floyd was murdered. The neighborhood is starting to rebuild. So far, none of the independent businesses really had a chance to rebuild. AutoZone has rebuilt, Wendy's has rebuilt, the Arby's hasn't, but another national chain has come in, fast food chain has come in their place. They don't shovel their sidewalks. It's very controversial. Target has rebuilt, and Target actually reopened on the day that the Barack Obama memoir came out. I don't know if you remember this. It was $50. It was a really big deal. There was a lot of talk in the press about how this was really going to save small businesses. Being able to sell this $50 book that was pretty much guaranteed to sell. Target, on the day they reopened in the neighborhood across the street from us, offers it 30% off, which for us is probably the thing my staff is never going to forget. They're going to be angry about that for years. I think that Target is not a bookstore. They're selling books now, and they're selling a lot more books, but they're not a bookstore. If you go to their website, you can now order anything that we can get from Target. And this is because there's only one wholesaler left in the country. And this wholesaler, 10 years ago, there were at least 4, but this wholesaler is it. If you're an independent bookstore selling new books, pretty much anywhere in the country, you're getting your books from this place. And Target also gets their books from this place, and probably Walmart, and definitely Amazon. I think that the past 10 years, publishers have merged. And I'm not going to get into that, but that's made it more stressful to only have the one wholesaler. And that one wholesaler, if they're also shipping out books for Target and Amazon, and if they suddenly decide to increase their shipping minimums, or to start charging more for shipping, or to change their policy for whatever reason to make it more complicated or more difficult for small independent bookstores to buy from them, there's no alternatives. I can right now figure out a way to get by. Like, I can order more direct from publishers. I can figure out how to shift what I buy to get around this issue of only one wholesaler. But in the Twin Cities metro area, there's over 20 independent bookstores, and we're all weird. And if we're all going to keep being here and being bookstores, we need a way to be able to get the products we need to sell without having to resort to buying from a big box store or ordering in from Amazon, just trying to get a cheaper deal than we can get from the wholesaler, because it's a similar thing where we can't get the product at a price from the wholesaler that big box stores can. I think it's especially troubling to think about that if for some reason Amazon decides to buy up books and not ship them, or to hold on to product until it's convenient and we can't get that product, what it really means for the industry. I know that this is a conversation I have to continually have with my customers, and I get tired of telling this story, even though I know that telling this story is kind of what helps them understand the business and why things are the way they are. That's what I got.
Just to speak to a bit of what you talked about, Could you talk a little bit about the role your store plays in the neighborhood? And just since the murder of George Floyd, what real, I mean, you talked about some of these big box stores coming back in, but a lot of the independents have not. Is that, why do you think that is?
Deep pockets. And I think the city hasn't been particularly easy to work with. The independent liquor store, I know, who's been there for 90 years and family-owned, had the zoning rules changed before they could get rebuilt. It's really hard to describe what it is to be in a community of independent businesses, because we all depend on each other, and we all really, it's in an ecosystem, and for us to be successful, we need other small businesses to be successful, and we need other businesses in the neighborhood to be doing well, and to have them not be able to rebuild is really, it's heartbreaking. You know, Target's there, but I also think that people don't really realize how important it is to have a small business, to be open, so that you have somebody to come in and complain to that the other business down the street isn't shoveling their sidewalk.
Yeah.
Because nobody at the city will listen to you about that. Yeah, we're just really all connected, and
Yeah.
it's hard.
And considering that there's been corporate consolidation, you know, I was just in a bookstore with Mel yesterday. I forget the exact name, to be honest with you. It was lovely, though. And, you know, they curate, and they really are seeking to educate folks who are there about things that are really important in the community. Target's not doing that. You know, it's just like whatever the bestseller is, right? And so there's a role in terms of democracy with small business, you know, based bookstores. And so, like, what role do you think your business has, just in terms of informing, educating, opening people's eyes that maybe they wouldn't get from a bigger box store?
Yeah, it's tricky. The thing I'm most bitter about Target with is that after the uprising and the rebuilding, they've put all these beautiful murals and hired all these artists to put these murals up around their store. But when the artists wanted community input about what the community wanted to see, they came to us to see if they could talk to people at our store to find out what people in the community wanted on Target, because Target wouldn't let them. And that's the kind of thing that, that's asking a lot of a small business to provide that sort of PR for Target, in my opinion. But that's what small businesses do. You know, like, we're talking to people in the neighborhood. We know what everybody's worked up about. We know what everybody's really dealing with. And big box stores can't do that, and Amazon can't do that. The beginning of the pandemic, they stopped shipping books because that wasn't the high priority.
Yeah.
They're big enough where at any point that they could change. I think the other thing that worries me with publishers is that the independent bookstore market is so small. I feel like the last I heard, it was 4% of the general book market. And if we ever have people in power there who decide that the indie market isn't important, well, then we're really screwed.
Yeah.
I don't know what we'll do.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, and appreciate it. Can we give a round of applause to Angela? And lastly, we have Khali Jama. Khali is from the Awood Center. And just building off of Angela's remarks on Amazon, it would be great for you to describe the Awood Center's work to organize, educate, the next generation of worker leaders in Minnesota's diverse East African communities. You've organized powerful and effective campaigns around Amazon. Can you share more about that work and why it's so important to Minnesota's East African community?
Hi, my name is Khali Jama. So I always been an organizer when it came to the East African community. I was the first Somali generation in Minnesota back in 1991. So growing up in Minnesota, we realized a lot of Somali was not recognized, African was not known that much. So our clothing and all that has always been an issue, especially going to school, covering up, and my parents always going to the grocery. So long story short, I lived in Minnesota, I moved, I came back. I'm a single parent of 2, so I always worked 2 jobs. I applied for Amazon because everyone always talked about Amazon, how good it is, quick money you can make, and I started working there. As I was working there, I noticed the couple weeks that I was there. So they hired me as an ambassador, which is like a new hire rotation. You train people on the floor, teach them their rights and stuff like that. So majority of the Amazon workers are immigrants, like the Latinas and the Somalian community, the Ethiopians, a lot of East Africans. So one thing I realized is when you didn't speak a good English or you didn't understand your rights, certain managers will kind of abuse you or bully you or just treat you when it came to work safety. Second thing I noticed that there was, whenever you worked, so I worked at the fulfillment center in Shakopee. And I did a Sunday to Wednesday 10-hour shift. In the winter it was okay. Once the summer started hitting and it started getting hot, the fans are above the sill. It does not reach you. So when you go and let the managers know, like, it is too hot, I need a break or do this, they tell you either you continue or you can go home. Like, there's nothing they can do for you, which I thought it was not right because as a human we have rights and safety come first. So the manager did not like me. They started calling me troublemaker. But I spoken out for a lot of Somalians. So one thing about the East African community, especially with my community, Somalian community, they don't pay attention to their rights. When they get a job, because a lot of Somalian immigrants have people back home that depend on them, monthly. They don't understand why you didn't send them. For them, they're waiting like a paycheck. So a lot of them fear to lose the job. So what I noticed Amazon use is they hire the most people who do not speak English at all, so they can do and abuse you, bully you, however they want. So when I started doing the orientation, I started teaching people their rights, which I got in trouble. I was told that was not my business to teach. I was supposed to just train and do that. But I told them a lot of people need to know they have rights when it comes to work. Like, they can take a break, they can ask. If they get injured, they have the right to go to the nursing, which the nurse center really is not a safety where they just tell you to lay down, give you some ice. So I noticed a lot of Somalians, Latinos who were injured. So I met with Awood Center, and I organized a walkout. So when I noticed a lot of managers didn't care about some people were getting fired, because they literally hire 30 to 40 people every Sunday. Literally every week that I work Amazon, every Sunday we have a rotation. Over 30 people. Out of those 30 people, only 5 or 4 stay after like a couple days or a week or 2. So I always go talk to them. So once I noticed the company did not care about the employees' work rights or the safety, and I got injured, and it wasn't that big a deal to them, I started organizing, letting people know that we do have rights, we can fight, we can go and speak, because we want people to hear our voices. A lot of people were afraid. But one night I just came in and I saw a lady who was in pain, vomiting in front of me in this time of pandemic, and could not go home. Because in Amazon, they have a way that if you don't have hours, whether you're sick, they don't care. It's called a UPT. So either you have hours or volunteer hours. If you don't have enough of them, not like other jobs where you can call in and say, I'm sick, because everything you deal with is an app. So you deal with the app. If you got to call in, everything you have to do days ahead, because they don't call you back within the right 24 hours. It probably takes 72, up to 4 days for them to return your calls, which a lot of people end up quitting because of that. So when we did the first walkout, that's when I met Awood Center. I also work for Local 26, SCIU. So when I met Ibrahim and them, we did over 100 people. It was like over 100 walkout, and on Friday night, they did not think that's gonna happen. But I know that's one of the things I'm proud of. So we did the walkout. After the walkout, Amazon put a lot of people on UPT because most of the people who worked there and did the walkout did not get paid through that night. So everybody got either suspended or the time was taken, or there was like, oh, you have to fill up your UPT, which is like -60 or -10 hours. So working with Awoods and helping my community, other communities to understand better, to educate them better when it comes to warehouse working. Because a lot of warehouses do bully, and I feel like work mistreatment and racism, especially with religion. Because right now we fought Amazon for 2 years to just get a place for Muslim people to pray or, to wash out. So I feel like fulfillment center where I was is a lot of racism. There's a lot of favorism when it comes to different colors, especially with religion. So I always fight. They do not like me, like I said. They always call me troublemaker because I speak my mind. We live this life in once, so I feel like if I'm gonna be the voice, I will. So my most main thing for me, I'm fighting for the workers, right? Just warehouses, Amazon, or any other warehouse, to understand this. They're people, they're humans. We deserve to be treated right. Just because you work in a certain position doesn't make you better than another person. So with Award Center stepping in and fighting and helping us, it's gonna be a long fight, but we're still fighting. So for me, it's to educate that East African community and to understand that every job you go to, you do have a right, not to be afraid to speak out.
Thank you for sharing. And I have to say, being called a troublemaker, I usually consider that a badge of honor or a compliment. And so it just speaks to the good work that you're doing and all the folks you're working with are doing. I just want to ask, what's the status of the organizing efforts more broadly in the Twin Cities area with Amazon and with SEIU? Like, how are things looking right now?
So it's a little challenging because Amazon is denying a lot. And we're not the only city. It's over 10 to 20 cities right now doing walkouts.
Yeah.
Literally month after month. So for me, I feel like it's a challenging because Amazon do have a union busters.
Yeah.
Who work with them, and they will go manipulate certain people, and some of them are Somalians. So we are working hard. Right now we're working with WFS, which I'm organizing there. It's the cargo for the Amazon. Mm-hmm. So hopefully if I can unionize there, it can help out the warehouses. Mm. So we're still working on the organizing. I'm working on another walkout, hopefully soon, before the end of the month or next month with the fulfillment center.
Yeah. And what would you say has been, other than the fact that they hire very well-paid lawyers to come in and lie to workers about the organizing drives, which I'm sure is a challenge, but what would you say has been some of the most inspiring moments for you? Other than the walkout, that's a big moment, but there have been any smaller moments maybe where you've really felt the ability to grow power and to be able to get momentum behind these efforts?
To be honest, just the fact that I work with Awood Center.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have a Middle East African community now, different from SEIU, where a lot of Somalians can understand. My thing is just my accomplishment. I just want to win with Amazon, especially like you said, they have higher lawyer pay where they think they can win. Actually, they don't think, they say they can win because they always told me you're losing. So most of it is getting the prayers where we can pray now because they didn't have that before.
Yeah.
So that's the smallest for me that I get, but we're not there yet. So now we can pray and they give you 10 minutes for the prayer. Before they only gave you 4.5 minutes, which was weird because you have to walk from a mile to a mile from the bathroom to the station that you're working.
What do you think was the thing that caused them to do that?
The walkout.
Yeah.
We did the walkout, and I actually, after the walkout, we did a rally, which Ilhan Omar was there. So I think after that, they kind of saw how serious we was.
Yeah.
So, because they didn't think we'll have the rally. They didn't think we will succeed on that, which, you know, I did my best to make sure we gather as much as people as we can. But once that happened, a day later, they allowed us to celebrate Eid, which we had, you know, Amazon have the rights, religious rights, but they don't tell people.
Yeah.
So a lot of Muslims did not get to celebrate Eid, and that pissed me off because I couldn't celebrate it.
Yeah.
I had to work or I had to quit.
Uh,
So after Ilhan, after Awood Center, that we did the rally, day after that, they gave all the Muslims a day off, like
Yeah.
a choice if you want to work or get a day off. So that was good.
Yeah. I mean, I think just speaks to, you know, power is about changing behavior
Yeah.
and getting people to do so. And I think it just really speaks to the work that you all have done, that you've been able to do that. So just congratulations on that. Can we give a round of applause real quick for Khali? And now we're going to move on to the Q&A. I think we're taking questions from online first. Is that right?
We can take from the audience.
Okay. All right. So who has questions for the panelists? And if you could say your name and if you're with an organization, that would be great.
Hi, yes, my name is Justin Stofran. I'm here with the Minnesota Farmers Union. And I'm wondering, maybe particularly for RF and Angela, although even Shawn, with your experiences, just what you hear from, when you guys are really on the sort of the ground level of this battle, and what are you hearing from other, either small business owners or maybe more importantly, like potential small business owners? Because it seems like quite a daunting thing to be like, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur in this kind of environment. So I'm just wondering what impact do you think it could have on, you know, future generations of entrepreneurs and small business owners?
Well, I think it's so hard to open a small business right now. I mean, just getting the money, the fact that you see so many people crowdfunding, the fact that everyone, I feel like I know who's gone in to try and get loans. It's so hard. Yeah, and I never want to be discouraging, but I'm also like,
I would say that I'm not hearing a lot from retailers. Probably where I'm hearing it the most is the cattle producers. I would say that, I don't know if I'd call it optimism, but maybe a renewed focus on, you know, with Senator Rounds taking on the beef packing plants. I think that's where it really hits home for a lot of South Dakotans, that these farmers and ranchers, producers are working so damn hard, and they just don't get paid for what they're doing, and literally getting screwed, to be honest.
I'll actually just very quickly add to that. A board member of Main Street Alliance is Rhonda Young, and she owns a popcorn business called Popcorn Heaven in Iowa. And she had her own standalone location. She also did franchising. She needed to hire somebody for her location, but she couldn't get the capital to do so. So she decided to just service the franchisees and then sold the main business because she had the obligation. She felt like she needed to do that, which, you know, that makes sense. So she sold the business. Another couple came in, one of whom was white, and they went back to the same bank, same business plan, same everything, and were offered twice as much, which would have been enough for Rhonda to be able to hire somebody. The thing I like about her is that what she decided to do was to start a black-owned bank to help with lending, to make sure that folks could get access to that capital, but there's still a tremendous amount of inequities, both for capital access, but also for you know, discrimination. You know, there's been a lot of American Rescue Plan money spent. I know in Wisconsin, we've had almost $1 billion spent to help support small business. In Minnesota, there's been a lot of efforts as well, but there's still a long ways to go. And the question is, once that money runs out, what are we gonna do to help support that next generation of small business owners?
Hello, thanks for sharing your stories today. My name is Vasiliki, and I was wondering if you could each share a little bit about marketing monopolies, because I think it intersects with pricing abuse in the way that corporations share about what they're doing and what they're offering, like the Target 30% off sales, or Amazon hosting festivals to attract Somali employees on Lake Street. So how does this all of this marketing budget influence the monopolies?
Well, I think the tricky part is the way that Amazon has really colonized everyone's mind. And that's the best way I can think of to describe it, is that it's so automatic culturally, as a default of that's where you buy things, that's where you get books, that's the norm, that it's very hard to fight against that. And at this point, I don't even know if they're paying for it. Like, we as individuals are doing that work for them for free.
I just think like working at Amazon, like now if you look at it, you see Amazon everywhere. You can order, do things. So like right now we just got out of a week called Prime Season, which bookstores, local businesses get discounts or deals of certain amount of orders they make. So as working there, it's not an easy job. So when you work, I'm there 10 hours, and let's say I made over 10 or 15,000 orders, because we got to go above that sometimes with Prime. So they don't like appreciate what we do. They just think, oh, you were slower today than the other person. So they make us compete, but no one gets appreciate. And so that's like, I'm not saying it's a horrible company to work for, but I believe it's the worst company to do business with, to do anything, because they don't care for others. All they care is for their own businesses. They don't care who gets hurt in a way, because for them, I believe the old CEO even said it when we questioned him when I was in DC, and he was questioned, what do you think about Amazon workers, and like what they're doing and all these protests and all this walkout? And he said, I hire people to work like animals, so either they take it or leave it. It's their choice. So that's Amazon for you.
Well, I think these manufacturers are so much in bed with these mass merchandisers, the big box, the chains, and they can't afford to not be. If these guys try and take a raise on a product, or when manufacturers try and take a raise, well, if Walmart or Amazon or somebody like that drops you as a product, you're done. And so I think the marketing and the pricing, they're all intertwined, but it just is, those big companies are just holding manufacturers hostage. And the rest of us retailers are paying for it. And so goes the consumer.
For RF and Angela, you both mentioned purchasing products for your businesses through wholesalers, and you also mentioned price discrimination, and that you're not able to pay the same prices that other, the larger organizations are to pay. My question is that price differential public information, or is the prices that your competitors are paying just completely secret in a capacity where it's just a lower number than you're able to pay, but you don't know exactly what it is? Or alternatively, is there a quote unquote market price that is then offset with rebates that are paid back to your competitors?
In my opinion, it's just such a convoluted deal. I mean, it could go to advertising or allowances, or I just think there are so many different levels of how that price is disguised. I don't think any of us have a clue what they're paying. I know they're not making 7 cents on salad dressing.
And with that, we're at time. So just want to say thank you very much. Thanks to the speakers for being here. Thanks for taking the time to use your voice. And again, you know, for if you're a small business owner, Ally, we do have. It's important for folks to use your voice. Fill out that pledge. Mel, could you raise your hand? Just point out yourself. That's Mel. She's our Minnesota organizer. She's amazing, and so definitely connect with her before you leave today. Thank you very much, and now we're going to take a 5-minute break.